Hi, I'm Kim Jordan. This particular presentation may seem to you to start off grim. I'm going to talk about some very large life events, be frank, be candid, and be very personal. Besides all that, I am not known for sugarcoating anything. Also, I may cry. You may cry, but that's okay. We'll get through it. I assure you that we're going to delve into inspiration, grace, and resilience, and end on a positive note, so please hang in there with me. In the past 3 years, my 10-year-old son died of cancer, my mother died, my best friend from college died, my 20-year marriage ended after I discovered my husband was cheating, and I lost a job I loved after working for that company 8 years. But not only am I still standing, I am thriving. This is possible due to the immensely strong network of women I have that are like sisters, and a depth of fortitude I didn't know I had until I needed it. Trauma can crush you, or you can use it as an opportunity for personal growth. You have to commit to that growth and then stay on that path. I did a lot of reading when my son was sick, mostly about the process of dying, which I came to discover is part of the process of life itself. And there's nothing more sobering than a terminal illness. My son had a grand mal seizure on an ordinary Tuesday morning in April of 2016. We were living in Alaska at the time, far from our support system. At first they said he had encephalitis, but they weren't sure what caused it. But after his condition began to deteriorate and he lost his ability to walk, he was diagnosed with cancer after a brain biopsy. Even his cancer was misdiagnosed, but once we got back to Houston, they diagnosed it correctly, and it didn't matter. They were both rare and they were both terminal. My family lived through 14 months of what's called anticipatory grieving, knowing his death was imminent. Naturally, I was unprepared for this on every level, and that's why I began reading, trying desperately to find some way to deal with this horrible circumstance. The best personal account I read said, "My son's death made me a better person. I made up my mind to strive towards the goal of becoming a better version of myself." And did I falter in that? Yes. Did I then re-examine my life and my behaviors? Also yes, and got right back on that path of mindfulness. When my best friend from college was dying of cancer, she was thoughtful, serene, and faithful. I used to be cynical and angry and defensive before I faced all of my life challenges. But from her I learned grace, something I had lacked my whole life. I could be brusque and sharp and too direct, living my life like a bull in a china shop. But my friend's unwavering dignity in the face of her own death humbled and shamed me. If she could exhibit such grace under her circumstances, who was I to hold on to my posturing? Letting go of that resistive nature was an overwhelming release, and I regretted not having done it sooner in my life. My mother was 82 when she died. She was a battle axe of a woman, did not suffer fools, and raised her only child to be the same way. She was formidable, a force to be reckoned with, fierce, unafraid. As an only child, I credit her with giving me the strength of independence and self-reliance. I still needed her when she died. I personally believe we all need our mothers, no matter what our age. But I took comfort in the realization that she knew she had done a good job as a parent. In April of 2019, I was on a business trip in our Wyoming office when a Facebook message came across my personal phone. It read, "Mrs. Jordan, I need to speak to you about your husband and my wife." My mind went blank. I was confused, but my heart started racing. When I clicked open the message, it included pictures. The sender was the other woman's husband, and he had hired a private investigator. There was no question my husband was having an affair with this man's wife. The sender apologized for being the bearer of bad news, but he felt I needed to know. I thanked him and went about the rest of my day as if nothing had happened. Now, I suspected this was going on, like a lot of women do, and I even suspected the name of the woman because he kept using her name all the time, which is always a telltale sign. But he always denied it when I brought it up. Back in the hotel room, I had a phone conversation with him. He happened to be a stay-at-home dad, and I told him he better find a place to live and he better get a job. But he refused to leave the house because his name was on it. What followed was 10 months of negotiations, arguments, and trying to keep my other son from being even more emotionally scarred. I had my moments where I shouted, "How could he do this to me after everything I've been through?" Perhaps his affair was dealing with our son's death. Most marriages don't survive the death of a child. One study shows that 80% fail. I had hoped ours would be different. And I underestimated his ability to deal with such a life-altering event. My focus now had to be on my own well-being and that of my sons. Putting myself first is hard, as it is for most women. Yet I'm of no use to anyone if I'm not physically, mentally, and emotionally healthy. It feels selfish and indulgent at times, two things we as women shrink from because we're always told to put somebody else first. But my traumas were so great, there was absolutely no way I could have survived them if I did not focus on myself. And how did I do that? I allowed myself to feel everything that grief brings along with it. That's scary and deep, and sometimes you don't see the light, but grief will have its way, so I found it was best just to leave it be free. Throughout all of this trauma, my work had been there. It was a lifeline when everything else fell away. And I'm honestly a better professional now. I'm more focused, more understanding, more sharp, more collaborative, and more empathetic. Again, all of that defensiveness and anger is gone, and it's left room for more peace and more calm, and that peace follows me all throughout my life now. The losses I've experienced have brought a level of understanding that I probably wouldn't have achieved otherwise. And that's partly from staying on that path to being a better person. I caught glimpses of my old path, bitterness, anger, resentment, and I still felt all those emotions. But now I recognize them as toxic, and I purposely chose to forsake them in favor of grace. So let's talk a moment about resilience. It's a very important quality in these challenging times. What do you think it is? Its definition is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness. Can this be learned, do you think? Or do our difficulties build the resilience? Resilience is adaptation. One must shift with a challenging life event or risk getting consumed by it or run over by it. One of the hallmarks of resistance is having good connections and relying on good relationships. People want to help, so let them. When my life was falling apart, a friend said to me, "People want to help. Give them a job. They feel so helpless." The last thing I wanted to do was be responsible for giving people assignments when I was going through such horrible situations. But I forged ahead and doled out some duties, meals for my family, taking my other son out for trips, minding my sick son when I needed to run errands, and so forth. I didn't realize it at the time, but as I was helping them help me, I was helping to heal myself too. I have always had a large group of friends from all walks of life, young, old, different income levels, different professions, different parts of the world. I'm a natural extrovert, so I nurtured that network even in the best of times. Never did I expect I would need to rely so heavily on these relationships for support, though. It proved to be a safety net, catching me time and time again whenever I stumbled, and I am forever grateful and indebted to these women. They felt the pain of my son's death just like I did, but they powered through it to stand strong for me. They were almost like a shield protecting me from further scarring of what I was going through. I can honestly say I would not be here without them. The past 3 years have tested my resolve and my very will to live, and I'm grateful to be with you all today. So to recap how I came through multiple traumas in a relatively short period of time and emerged a stronger person: mindfulness, focus on self, relying on your network. Lastly, I'd like to give recognition to the therapists and doctors who've helped me through this journey. Did I seek professional help? Better believe it. I urge anyone out there who is dealing with something larger than themselves to get all the help they can. You don't have to carry this alone. Do you know that TV series Shameless? Well, there's a scene in which the lead character stands on the shores of Lake Michigan and shouts, "Is that all you've got?" I can relate to that. After enduring the deaths of my child, my mother, my friend, my marriage, my job, I'm here fighting another day and shouting, "Is that all you've got?"